Let's move on slightly to the situation in Venezuela, because I know you spoke out earlier in the week about the decision not just to topple Maduro and not to take out the whole regime. But Donald Trump said last night in an interview with the New York Times that the US could be involved for years. And when asked how long it would remain the nation's political overlord, not mine, that's the words of the New York Times, like whether the regime is gone or not, from that it doesn't sound like the regime will be in control, the US will be.
Yeah, well, two aspects of that. One is the U.S. domestic political impact. The other is the impact on Venezuela and elsewhere. And here's another example of what I mentioned. The MAGA base is going to find itself very surprised that the president said, let's end the endless wars, let's get out of all these countries, is now proposing to run Venezuela, take its oil, sell it in international markets, allocate the proceeds to the U.S. or Venezuela, as the case may be, and to do all this through a murderous dictatorship, which is effectively still the Maduro regime, except not with Maduro. And I think as these plans, I use the word plan advisory, but as they become somewhat more concrete, it will become apparent that in Trump's mind, he's not getting out before the end of his term. Ironically, though, the oil benefits that he wants are not going to come during his term anyway. The Venezuelan oil infrastructure is so dilapidated, in such disrepair. Every serious estimate I've seen means it would take years and years and billions of dollars to fix. What Trump is focused on is what we call price at the pump of gasoline in this country. He's trying to beat inflation. Price at the pump is actually down, but that's what he's obsessing about. How he's going to get American oil companies to commit capital expenditures in the billions of dollars when the current price of oil is between $55 and $60 a barrel. It's going to be interesting. He meets with the oil company executives on Friday. That's going to produce a reaction too. So explain, Mr. President, why you want Venezuela to produce oil as opposed to Texas producing oil. You favor the giving the economic benefit to Venezuela, or wouldn't you like Texas-based oil companies to do better? I don't know what his answer is to that. Now, internationally, what he's done is not regime change, but quite possibly regime consolidation. He's kicked Maria Corina Machado, the Democratic leader, to the side. He's dealing with Delcy Rodriguez, who's as bloodthirsty as all the rest of the top leaders in the Maduro regime. And what they're doing right now in Venezuela is enhanced repression of dissent. I mean, they are solidifying their position. Now, we've got a lot of cards. We've got coercive power. That's true. But why can't we do all the things we want to do with the Democratic opposition that won the election that Maduro stole in 2024? Why are we leaving this new regime in place? I think it's a very serious mistake because everything that regime does will be attributable to the United States, precisely because, as Trump has said, we had the power to throw them out and didn't. And that is a poison chalice.
And we've been given no indication yet on what interim actually means in terms of a time frame.
No, he talks about a transition. Well, a transition to what? If it's going to take years, that's a pretty long transition. The argument the administration seems to be making is that the opposition can't really control the levers of power, that only the Maduro regime can ensure stability, and you need stability to get investment, and you need the foreign investment to help recuperate the oil industry. But again, foreign companies are not going to think that stability really comes from the Maduro regime. They would want a government, presumably a freely elected government that actually believes in the rule of law, that sort of thing. And they know they're not going to get that from the Maduro people. So I think Trump's put himself in a box with no exit, and unfortunately, he may not feel the effect of it before he leaves in 3 years. But the Venezuelan people are feeling the effect of it right now, and we may see the repercussions as well.
So is there a grand plan?
No. He's making this up as he goes along. I would love to see the documentation on when the Energy Department first thought of getting hold of this oil and running the country, and where all that started. It was clear over the weekend when Trump talked about running the country, and Rubio was trying to walk it back, saying, well, it's setting policy, and the Venezuelans are actually going to be in control. I don't think anybody really knows. They've given several briefings to members of Congress behind closed doors. Uh, Nobody seems to think that they've actually laid out a plan. And so I think this is a very dangerous situation. I don't see why, if you're going to do what they did in grabbing Maduro over the weekend, you don't follow through and get rid of the rest of the regime and put the opposition in place. They won't do everything perfectly at first, but they at least have the virtue of the respect of the Venezuelan people who voted to elect them to the presidency.
So this huge flurry of kind of foreign policy moves we've seen over the last few days, even with the oil tankers yesterday, do you not put any weight onto the idea that this is sort of part of the so-called Don Roe doctrine?
No, the part that he likes about the phrase Don Roe doctrine is the word Don. He doesn't do doctrine. That's just not what he does. I think it's, people often say that at the end of an American presidency, presidents tend to focus on foreign policy because they don't have Congress interfering with them. They can get a lot done on their own. Well, Trump is doing that right now with 3 years left in his administration. And I think it's part of his effort to build what he thinks is a legacy for Donald Trump, and to get it done before they get control of Congress, if that happens in the November election.
Are you saying that he is coming towards the end of his presidency?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I don't think even he believes at this point there's a third term. The Constitution could not be clearer. They had in mind the example of Grover Cleveland, who was the only other president who served 2 terms separated when they wrote the 22nd Amendment. It's not going to happen, and I think as he internalizes that, he wonders what he's going to do when he's not president anymore, and he's trying to do it all as quickly as he can.
Just briefly, Ambassador, while we've got you, I wanted to talk about Iran a little bit. You have so much expertise in this area. Are we seeing the beginnings of the end of the regime?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I must say these protests continue. They're growing. They're across the country. They reflect a deep economic discontent and that's all over the country because of 45 plus years of economic mismanagement, not just external sanctions. When you add to it the discontent of the youth, 2/3 of the population, roughly under 30, the women's revolution of 2 years ago after the murder of Masi Amini, the ethnic dissatisfaction with Kurds and Arabs and other minority ethnic groups. I think the regime is in deep trouble. I think it's extremely unpopular. I think what we should be doing is helping the opposition fragment the regime at the top. And I think they're watching what's happening in various parts of the world now. And I think the regime itself is very worried, and I hope they are worried. And for the good of the Iranian people and the security of the Middle East and the world as a whole, I'd love to see the Ayatollahs overthrown as soon as possible.
Is there any danger at all that the Ayatollah is overthrown, but not the regime, like you've seen in Venezuela?
Well, look, fundamentally, right now, the Revolutionary Guards control the country. They control huge amounts of the business interests, maybe as much as 40 or 50% of GDP. They control the nuclear and ballistic missile programs. The Ayatollah is a distant figurehead, but he gives them legitimacy. It could be but that's why you need to find ways to fragment the Revolutionary Guard. They know the situation in the country, and I think many of the rank and file would stand with the people if they had leaders who were willing to go over to the other side. The country is in deep trouble for a lot of reasons. It's losing its water supply, among other things. They're actually talking about moving the capital out of Tehran because there's inadequate water for the civilian population. So there's real trouble there, and those are the circumstances in which this repressive regime really could go under.
But I know you wrote a piece this weekend that you, right now, don't necessarily see any direct US action on the horizon.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, Trump has said he's threatened if they go after the protesters, the U.S. would respond. I'd be fine if he did that, but I don't expect it. I think he's more worried about Greenland, honestly, than he is about Iran.
Just finally, in the space of 5 days, with everything we've seen at the start of this year, if you were still advising the president, what would you be saying this week?
Well, I'd be saying a lot. I'd be saying finish the regime change in Venezuela. I think that will have knock-on effects in Cuba, which is in desperate economic shape and will be in even more desperate shape when Venezuelan oil stops flowing at subsidized prices, and that in turn could bring down the Ortega regime in Nicaragua. I think the situation in Iran is approaching a crisis point. That's another opportunity for us. And I think we're giving far too much away to the Russians in these negotiations over a ceasefire. I'd certainly reverse course on many aspects there. And I would be a lot more worried about China and the threat it poses right now along its Indo-Pacific periphery, but really globally in short order.